Hey YouTube, thought I'd do a 5,000 mile review on the truck. 2023 L5P 3500 with 6.6 Duramax. So, as you can see, I'm in the middle of another regen. That bottom right number is the mileage since the last regen. Been trying to get some trending data on that. 469 miles is actually the lowest. Of course, I've been home doing a lot of day-to-day driving thus far. I've had it as high as 730-ish miles between regens, and that was doing a lot of pulling, a lot of highway. So it's just kind of interesting to see how often you actually do regen in these trucks. I've seen some videos online with the new Ford Power Strokes, guys doing reviews, and the one thing that is baffling to me is the factory DPF filter gauge in the Fords. A lot of these guys driving highway or towing, it's reading 0% often in these videos, and I don't understand that, because as soon as this thing is done within 5 miles, I'm already rebuilding soot, and it's starting to read on my Edge tuner up there. So I don't know if Ford and Chevy are different, if it's a gauge or instrumentation, programming, tuning, reading, whatever you want to call it. But I would think if the engines are running and the exhaust is blowing out, you're building soot. Now, if you're towing and your EGTs are obviously higher more often, yes, you're burning less soot. There could be additives to help that, but I've just never seen this truck at 0% soot for more than a mile before it starts building something up, in that filter. But other than that, like I said, it's got 5,600 miles on it. I tried to do a 5,000 mile review. Sorry, I was late on that. But no outstanding issues with it. Did the first oil change at 5,000. The one thing that's really kind of quirky with the GM app, for anybody that owns these trucks and has a GM app on their phone, which I think is actually required now when you buy the truck, but I will open up the app and it will tell me 5 to 6 alerts that need attention with the truck. And you click on those alerts and it brings you the diagnostics screen at the very bottom that talks about powertrain, emissions, basically the critical components of the truck. But then they all have a green check mark by them and the message is gone. So I don't know if it's a bug in the app. I don't know if it's a computer sending data to the app issue. And there's a cop. We're gonna come on down. Sorry guys. I did take the truck in because the infotainment system, I don't know what the deal is. Ever since I bought this truck, every now and then it goes through this phase of rebooting itself in the middle of just driving down the road. The stereo cuts out, the screen goes dark, GM emblem comes up, it does a reboot, and then everything kind of comes back on. Talking to my dealership, they said that new trucks, it's common, they have to be reflashed, and it's supposed to correct all that. Well, I took it in, had the computer completely reflashed, didn't change a thing, still doing the exact same thing. It's an annoyance, I think, more than anything. I still have some freezing issues on that if I'm scrolling through too many buttons or screens or menus, but I think you just chalk that up to technology, right? They can only process so much input at a time before they're just not happy. Besides that, truck has been great. Towing with this truck over my Cummins, I still miss the Cummins engine. I miss the way it sounds, the low torque curve at the bottom. Don't get me wrong, this truck has plenty of power. I have zero complaints on the power. the Cummins engine and the exhaust brake. There's not another manufacturer with a better combo at this time. The exhaust brake on this truck works. People say they don't. They work. It works. However, the only way you're going to engage it is to get on that brake pedal for 2-3 seconds of good pressure applied to that brake pedal. That exhaust brake will kick in. It's never not kicked in for me when I've needed it. However, all it does is slow the truck down. If you need to accelerate for just a little bit, it disengages it. You have to reapply the brake to re-enable that exhaust brake. The Cummins, man, talk about the best exhaust brake on the market. So full mode in the Cummins, every time you let off the accelerator, your exhaust brake is engaged. If you go to auto mode, which is what I typically towed in, then whatever speed you let off the throttle on going downhill, it will hold you to that. If you need to slow it down, you apply the brake to drop 5 miles an hour, let off the brake, it will hold you to that. Once it deems you at the safe speed that you are telling it to be at, it disengages. I mean, it's the best exhaust brake on the market, and hopefully I explained that properly. GM does not have it. Ford does not have it. The new 24s are supposed to be better. I don't know. I've heard mixed reviews, but I don't know if it's an inline 6 and turbo combination that is getting them there. But I would think that for how many people rave about that Cummins exhaust brake, big players like Ford and General Motors would figure out how to alter their exhaust brake to equal the efficiency and the strength and performance of the Ram Cummins exhaust brake. Just my opinion. Sorry, got off on a tangent. Anyway, besides that, this truck is hands down more comfortable to ride in than the Cummins. I cannot speak to the Ford. I have not owned any new Power Strokes or driven them. But the independent front suspension on this truck, the way this truck performs, the way it drives down the road, the way it tows, it's absolutely the most comfortable pickup I've ever owned. People talk about hot shotting Cummins and Power Stroke and Duramax. That is so user preference, subjective, etc. There's just people like different things. I tow quite a bit. There's 5,000 miles on this truck. I'll bet you 3,000 of it's been towing, minimum. And I will say, I like towing in this with this 10-speed transmission more. Oh, another cop, hang on. I'm sorry. Lots of cops out right now. I like towing in this with the setup, engine tranny setup, more than I do, or I did with the Cummins. With that said, I don't know if it's because this is still new and possibly still breaking in. Out of the 5,600 miles I've put on this truck, I have dumped 6 2.5 gallon boxes or jugs, whatever you want to call them, of DEF in this truck. I never put more than 1 or 2 boxes a year in my Cummins. I've owned this truck since late March, early April, and I've used over, I think I've 6, I might be on my 7th actually now. But the DEF consumption, I don't understand it. It's, I believe it's full now, because I keep it full at all times, and I'll talk about that in a second, but this truck consumes more DEF, probably twice as much, if not more, than my 6.7 Cummins. And I don't understand why that is. So speaking of the DEF, you guys can see I'm full. This truck has a 7-gallon DEF tank. The 6.7 Cummins, at least my 2017, had a 5-gallon. Made it very, very easy. When you hit halfway on your def gauge in the Cummins, which is an analog gauge that sat to the lower left of the dash. You go buy a 2.5 gallon jug, put it in, tops it off, and in my case, you were good for another 6-8 months, depending on how you drove. With this one being a 7 gallon, that rule obviously doesn't apply as well, because if I wait till it gets to half and I go to put a jug in, it doesn't quite fill it. Guys, rule of thumb on def, and I've been told this by many diesel mechanics, so this is not me thinking I'm smarter than everybody else. I'm relaying what I've been told and it makes sense. Do not wait for your def to be down so low that you get the warning to add def. Reason being, if you get bad def, contaminated def, whatever, you are risking sensors tripping because of contaminated def fluid and you having to take your truck into a dealership. All diesel mechanics will tell you, at least the ones I've spoken to, you keep the def topped off, add it as often as you can. If by some chance you get some bad DEF, it'll mix with the stuff in your tank. You're much less prone to throw codes and errors if you get some bad stuff. So I've done that with all of my diesels thus far. I have never, knock on wood, I'm probably gonna hose myself for saying this, in the 3 Cummins I've owned and this Duramax, I have never had an issue with def. Sensors, lights, codes, nothing. Could be just plain luck, but logistically, it makes sense. You're not putting all brand new stuff in the system. You are continuing to mix to keep it as consistent and as stable as possible. So take that for what you will. Just again, just my, oh my gosh, sorry. 2 cops sitting right here at the corner. They are out thick right now. I'll get this back up here in a second. All right. Wow. Sorry, guys. So anyway, besides that, the def issue, the screen, you know, little computer flash and whatnot, like I said, truck has been amazing. Truck has been to multiple states now, towing our 30-foot toy hauler, and just could not be happier with the comfort. The fuel mileage is lower than my Cummins. It's averaging 8.8, 8.9, towing my 30-foot toy hauler. The Cummins was in the 10.5 to 11 range. This isn't broken yet, I get it. So we'll just keep monitoring that. But fuel mileage just driving around, not complaining whatsoever. So that 14.5, like I said, I've been driving in town the last 2.5 weeks. But if I'm doing combination town and highway, that average MPG right there typically tells me between 17.5 and 19 is a very good average to go by so far. So not unhappy with that whatsoever. Towing, yes, she's thirsty, but day-to-day driving, full size. This is a crew cab, long bed truck, so it's heavy, 8,400 pounds, I think is what the factory weight sticker on the door says. But not unhappy with that. Trying to think if there's anything else I could mention or bring up, or we've had issues with. I mean, they're little, obviously, nothing big at all. I can't think of any at this point in time. So anyway, I hope this helps somebody looking at one of these trucks, or you know, one of these L5Ps that are, I guess they're called the first gen. The 24 is going to be the second gen, but we'll see. We got a lot more testing. We got a long time ahead of us to figure out what this truck's going to do, how it's going to respond, how it's going to react. Right now, I'm just taking it on a country drive to burn that thing all off. As you can see, we're down to 15%. So it won't be much longer now, and I think that is worth its weight in gold. I think it says something for the longevity of the emissions systems in these trucks. If you know when you're in a regen and you can just take a little bit of a drive to clean it completely out before you shut it down, you know, I'm assuming that's going to be better on the truck long term than you don't know. You could drive it around, you could take it on road trips every now and then, but every time you shut the truck off when it's in a regen, you know, it's doing some kind of long-term, I don't want to say damage, but a long-term effect. And those filters can only take so much of that on off before they really have a hard time and struggle to blow things out completely. So again, just my way of thinking, just my assumption. If you know when the truck's into regen and you have the time, or you can schedule a time to just go for a 30-minute drive, 40-minute drive, highly recommend doing it. If there's any particular questions you guys have, feel free to hit me up. I will do the best I can. I'll keep the reviews coming as often as possible, but I want to have good information on the reviews. I don't want it just to be 10,000 miles, truck's running fine, have a good day. I want to be able to gather the data to pass on to you guys. So anyhow, appreciate y'all, and we'll catch you up on the next one. Have a good one.